Super Mini segment is one which has gone from strength to strength as the years have gone past, and all the cars within it have grown larger and more family friendly. Today, in this latest Motors Rivals review, we'll be pitching two of the favourites together.
Now the Renault Clio is starting to show its age a little bit now. It's been on sale for over 7 years, but it's still proved extremely popular. Now over 1 million have been sold in the UK since it first hit our shores, and a new one is due later this year. But the big question is, how does it stack up against the latest crop of Super Minis?
The new Seat Ibiza is such a car, and it benefits from all the high levels of technology and refinement that you'd expect from a Volkswagen Group vehicle. However, how does it get on with the tried and tested Renault Clio? Let's find out.
Okay, so we'll start off with the Clio, and like I said in the intro, it really is starting to show its age a bit. Some of the plastics down here are a little bit scratchy, and the satellite navigation system is somewhat dated.
It's a little bit behind the times, but in fairness to the Clio, the practicality side of things is done quite well. I've got plenty of space back here, there's a good amount of legroom and quite a lot of headroom as well. And I think, yeah, there's space for 3 back here, though I think if you had 3 people, it's going to be a little bit tight.
Yeah, I think some of the ergonomics are a little bit all over the place as well. One of the biggest things that frustrates me on some of the Renault cars that I've seen lately is the cruise control, which seems to be spread all over the place. There's 2 buttons here either side of the steering wheel and 1 down here by the handbrake. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't add up at all. But then, with regards to the quality, I think it's worth mentioning the price, because what did we say this was? It's
this one with the GT line spec is just over £18,500.
Right, so that's not a huge amount of cash.
Yeah, and with this being a run-out model as well, you'll probably get deals on that as well.
Yeah. So what we can say is good levels of practicality. It's at a pretty reasonable price, but the overall quality is lacking somewhat, particularly in this segment. But should we go and see the Ibiza and see how that gets on? I can't get out. Now we're in the Seat Ibiza, and almost immediately things feel quite a bit more upmarket. I've got leather effect, I'd say, effect on the dash, and a really big widescreen infotainment system which kind of dominates the whole of the cabin up front. But how are things at the back?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly feels more modern, but I don't know, it's not as upmarket as you would expect for a car that's probably 5 or 6 years newer than the Clio. There are still some cheap plastics dotted around, and the seats don't feel particularly high quality, but there is loads of space. And one thing I haven't seen for quite a long time is a windy window.
So, can't be a wind-up window.
Can't be a windy window.
But, you know, there's less to break.
True,
that's
very
the thing.
True, very true.
But I think the tech levels are higher, I'd say, and I think the ergonomics are improved over the Clio significantly. All the steering wheel mounted controls are really easy to use. You've got a normal windscreen wiper setup as opposed to the weird one in the Clio, I believe.
Yep.
And everything feels that it's put exactly where you'd expect it to be.
Yeah, definitely. Well, from where I'm sitting, you certainly look a bit more cocooned by everything around you.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Clio, it feels completely the opposite.
There's a greater feeling of solidity, I think, in the whole car. It feels like a more rounded product, I'd say.
And that's exactly what you'd expect for a car from a Volkswagen Group.
Exactly, but the price isn't reflected. You know, it's a very similar price to the Clio, even though it is quite a bit newer as well.
Yeah.
So, what are we on to next, Nige?
We'll jump in the Clio and go for a drive.
Cool, let's go and drive it.
Okay, so we'll start off with the Clio.
Yep.
And do you know what? It's not actually that bad.
No.
For a car of its age, it's pretty capable.
Yep.
This is the TCE 90, so it pumps out 90 brake horsepower.
Yeah.
Not particularly quick, 0 to 60, about 12 seconds.
It's not fast at all, no.
But I'll tell you what, it does handle pretty well. Not as good as a Fiesta.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I prefer it to some of the more modern stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
And I guess it's quite light and easy to drive around town, which is what you'd be wanting from a car like this.
Exactly what you want from a car like this. I mean, it is quite a big Super Mini.
Yeah.
But it does feel quite agile. The steering's quite responsive. Gives you quite a bit of confidence actually when you are driving it a little bit quicker, that it will go exactly where you want it to.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I would say is if you are going to be doing a lot of motorway miles, probably worth going for the 1.7 litre, 1.5 litre diesel.
But I don't think if you were doing longer journeys on a less regular basis, you wouldn't find this too difficult to drive on the motorway.
No, not at all.
Just take a little bit more forward planning.
Yeah, a little bit
to get past.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit noisy. It's not. It's not the most refined cabin.
It's a bit of road noise coming up.
A little bit of road noise, but the ride isn't massively firm. You know, it's not. It's firm enough to help with the handling, but it's it's certainly not as intrusive as some of the competition. Yeah, for sure.
Now we are in the Seat Ibiza, and I think immediately you can tell the difference between this and the Clio. It feels a little more grown up, I'd say. It's a little quieter. The engine is a 1 litre turbocharged petrol engine with just shy of 90 horsepower, so in power terms, pretty similar to the Clio.
Yeah.
But I think the way the engine noise is isolated and also the road noise is isolated is what sets it apart from the Renault.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it certainly feels a lot more grown up in here.
But in the same vein as the Renault, all the controls are very light. Steering's light, gearbox is light, clutch is light, and like we said earlier, that's just what you want from a car of this type.
Yeah, 100%. And it seems very bright in here, even though some of the cabin materials are quite dark. Nice big airy windows.
Yeah, they've done well to get quite a lot of light into the cabin. I think that just the takeaway phrase from all of this is it's just a far more grown-up car.
Yeah.
It feels a little more rounded. It feels less edgy than the Clio, and I think that could make it a slightly better choice for those who do all manner of driving, not just town driving.
I completely agree.
So now that we've driven both cars, shall we park up and see what they're like from the outside?
Yes, let's do that.
Let's do that.
Okay, well, when it comes to the design, we'll start with the Clio, and it doesn't look too bad actually. It's aged pretty well for a car that's 7 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite rounded, but it still looks quite fresh, and the chrome accents that you get on this GT line spec car help it look a little more premium than you'd expect for the money.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that Formula One style diffuser on the back.
Yeah, I don't think it looks the best, but then again, it does help break up the overall look of the rear of the car, otherwise it could look a little slab-sided, I think.
Yeah, it is quite French though.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Oh, definitely French, yeah. And in contrast, the Ibiza is all about sharp, angular design. You've got some really big cuts, and these quite large alloy wheels help it look really good too, I think.
Yeah, it certainly looks very modern, especially compared to the Clio, and the colour is quite bright.
Yeah, it is quite bright, but it does help it stand out. So if you do want a car that has a little more presence, then the orange colour is probably the one to go for.
Yeah, and the twin exhausts at the back also give it a bit more of a premium feel.
They look really cool, almost like a hot hatch, you could say.
In fact, you wouldn't look at this car and think it costs 17 grand.
No, it looks really, really good for the money. So today we've looked at both the Clio and the Ibiza in 3 distinct areas. We've looked at the inside, we've looked at the outside, and most importantly, we've been out to drive both of them. But what do we think of them?
Okay, so starting with the Ibiza, it certainly looks modern and stylish. Inside, it's very well put together, as you would expect for a car from Volkswagen, and it drives incredibly well for a small Super Mini.
The Clio, meanwhile, can't quite match the same driving style that you get in the Ibiza, and also it can't match it in terms of technology or overall build quality. It also costs about the same, which makes the Ibiza even better value for money.